What's up, guys? And we've got the set store championships coming up this weekend, or at least starting this weekend, running through the month. And a number one question I've seen asked or been asked is, what deck should I take? Now, I've got plenty of decks here. There's tons of stuff you can look at, but instead we're going to do this a little different. We're going to break it down with the top 6 decks that can win you one of those Ursulas. All right, guys, so we're going to be jumping into these decks, and I'm going to be going over what I think are the best 6 decks for you to take to the store championships that you may be participating in. Now, that doesn't mean there's going to be other decks that maybe can win you an Ursula, because I do believe if you have a deck that you know very well and you know how to play it and they have decent matchups, you may be able to win an Ursula pretty easily. Last set championships, I saw a lot of decks making it to the top 4 and even into the finals that were just homebrews that the people knew exactly what they were doing. So just keep that in mind. If you have a favorite deck, definitely take the deck. But I want to go over 6 decks that I know are very strong, very well put together. And instead of doing it like a tier list, what's S tier and B tier and all of that, I'm going to break it down by price. Now, we all know everybody wants to run the best deck out there, but we don't always have the money to be able to put that deck together. Maybe we're missing a few cards or something like that. So I want to break these down in groups of pricing, with the most expensive decks all the way to a budget option that can win you an Ursula. So with that being said, let's jump into the first deck, and we all know what it is. It's Bucky. Now, Bucky is one of the best decks in the format right now. Yes, there's some other decks that are good against Bucky, but we all know Bucky is the deck that everybody's going after. He's got Diablo for your card draw, and it's got a lot of really expensive cards like Tragic Beast and Robin Hood. Because of that, that is one of the big reasons why this deck is so expensive. So many legendary cards in here that are 4-ofs, and this is about a $800 deck. Now, there are some different builds of this that you may be closer to like $750, but this truly is one of the most expensive decks when it comes to Lorcana, especially in the competitive scene. If you're not playing it, make sure you can beat it, because you will see this deck a good bit at the stores. The people that are grinders, they're going to put this thing together, and this may just be out of your price range, which is why we can look at our next bucket of list, and we're going to start it off with Steel Song. Yes, I said it, Steel Song. I know this deck has been gone for a little while, but I believe that this deck can make a resurgence and do well at the Ursula events. Now, if you don't know, there was a tournament this past weekend that this deck did make it into the finals. I think it was a 32-person event or something like that. So it is possible to win with this deck. Now, this is still on the expensive side. It's not $800, but it is $450. It's a little pricier. Some of these cards are a little bit older, so maybe you already have some of the expensive cards like Rapunzel, but just kind of throwing it out there, be aware this is still at that top end of the list if you're trying to put something together. Reason being, you still have cards like Robin Hood in here. Again, Rapunzel, like I mentioned, a very, very expensive card that you're going to need play sets of. So this deck, all in all, I think is a great deck. It's a great pick and choice because of what it can do. But if you're still looking kind of in the different budgets, wait till a little bit later on the list. From Steel Song, we're going to pick the other boogeyman in the format, which is the CISO on Ice, the Ruby Sapphire deck, the blue-red. This deck is also a very, very good deck. Now, you do need to know how to pilot it. You need to be a little more patient with this deck. It's not aggro. It's not very easy to run. There are a lot of lines in this deck, but it can definitely close out games if you get to that mid to late game. You can snag wins towards the end, or you can get your ink going really quickly with a quill so that you can wipe the board with Be Prepared. There's a lot of great cards, and again, this particular list is one that got second place at the 10K, so it is a deck that's proven that it can make it to the finals. And if you're looking for that control type, setup, this is definitely one of the best control decks that's out there. If you need something a little bit cheaper, maybe the $430-$400 range isn't where you want to be, well, let's pop over to R&B's favorite, Zoolander. Now, Zoolander is another control deck. It's been around in the format since the beginning of Lorcana. It's got some tools along the way, but this Sapphire Steel deck is really, really good. R&B actually just took down a 1K. I think it was a 1K. It may have been a 2K with this build, but you can see it's got some aggro starting at the beginning with cards like Smee. It has its ramp package. It's got its draw package with Hiram, and then it's got the closeout with cards like Tamatoa and Bell in here as well. So a lot of really great cards in here. It is a solid deck, and this brings us down to that 250 range. Like I said, we've gone from 800 to 450. Now we're at 250. Great decks in here. Again, a lot of these cards came from the first couple sets. So if you were around during the first chapter and you were getting your cards, you may not have to invest too much into this because of a lot of those cards that are in here that are expensive are the older cards in here. And moving on from Zoolander, well, we've got the tried and true, the Ruby Amethyst deck. Like I've said before, these colors have been here since the beginning of Lorcana. They've been the dominant force of Lorcana through all of the different sets. We saw this list take down the 10K, and it's a great, great list. So all in all, this one puts you again around that 250 range or something like that. So it's going to be great. And if you have a lot of these cards, your Mauis, your Be Prepareds, things like that, it's going to bring this price down a lot. Now, some of these cards are continuing to go up, like Maui, like the Castle right now. So you do need to be aware that if you're investing in the deck, now is pretty much the time to do it, because if we don't see reprints, all of these cards are going to continue to go up if this deck stays on top. So we've looked at 5 decks so far. We went from the top end, but now I know you're asking, what's that $1 mark? What's the budget deck that's here? And that is going to be the Amethyst Steel deck. So big shout out to Spessy. Spessy took this to win himself an Ursula and a championship match at the media event. And I do think that this deck may need a couple tweaks. So this is the slight tweaks that I have in the deck that I've found, you know, talking in the Discords and stuff like that. So it's not the exact list from Spessy, but it's very close. It allows you to have some of that early game with all of your aggressive creatures. The late game, you've got Tinkerbell in there to take out Bucky, so you have some game against the discard decks. So all in all, I think this is a really great deck. I think it gives you what you want, and it's the $150 range. There you have it, guys. Those are the 6 decks that I believe can easily win you an Ursula at these set championships. If you have a deck that maybe we didn't cover, maybe we haven't talked about, or I don't even know about, leave it down in the comments. Let me know the color combination, what cards, all that good stuff, and I'll take a look at it. We plan here at the Inkcast on taking these decks head to head over the next couple weeks to give you guys some feedback on gameplays, what you should do here and there. And that is the plan as we go. Now we have our first set championship coming up this weekend. We're excited to see how that goes. We'll all be taking one of these 6 decks there. So we'll give you some feedback on what we saw, how it went, and all that good stuff as well next week as we do the podcast. So appreciate you guys so much for everything you're doing. Make sure if you haven't already done it, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Let the algorithm build this thing up, get this video out there. So appreciate you guys. Until next time, I'll take it easy.